The Radio Today podcast with Jen Sederhelm.
Hi and welcome. In this podcast, hot tomato on top on the Gold Coast, departures at Ahern and a new leadership structure for LiSTNR, nominations open for the NFSA's 2025 Sounds of Australia. Steve Ahern spoke to Clive Dickens about his new AI advisory company. 4 new transmitters up and running in 24 hours, no problems. And the National Radio Airplay Chart Song of the Week. Hot Tomato was number 1 on the Gold Coast in GfK Survey 1 2025, but after obliterating the field last year, the station has seen drops in all day parts, except evenings, strangely, which was up 8.1 to 21.8, to have an 18.5 audience share 10+. All the local commercial stations decreased their share of ear. Triple M Gold was down 1.5 to 12.8 and CFM down 0.3 to 8.7. However, there were significant gains for ABC Gold Coast. This survey was delayed by 3 weeks due to the impact of Cyclone Alfred, and the local ABC appears to have benefited as a result. They were up 2.6 to 5.9 overall and 3.4 to 7.6 on breakfast, by far the best result this survey. The Gold Coast is an interesting market in that Brisbane ABC and commercial stations are included, Nova 106.9 the best of the bunch, but others that more specifically service the Gold Coast but sit outside the area, for example Rebel FM, The Breeze and the Super Radio Network's Radio 97 on 104.1 FM on the Gold Coast, aren't. This survey, there is around 30% of the Gold Coast audience that is listening elsewhere. Gailey and Emily Jade were atop in breakfast for Hot Tomato, and the station was still ahead in all day parts and demographics, with the exception of 65 plus who were listening to ABC Gold Coast. It was also Hot Tomato's highest cum figure, with 222,000 listeners tuning in. Cumulative listening was up for all, which again might be attributable to the impact of Cyclone Alfred and wishing to keep up to date with the news and after effects. As we head to the end of financial year, the slated 70 to 100 back-end job losses at Ahern are taking effect, with unfortunately a few additional that have come as a surprise. Director of Commercial Strategy and Growth, Vanessa Hunt, wraps up at the end of June. Nathan Feldman, Group Business Director for Direct Sales and Independent Agency. Client Strategy Manager Karen Harris and KISS 106.5 Content Director Tony Aldridge have or will depart. And Zach and Dom's nighttime show on the KISS network finished up. The last decision was unexpected, as Zach and Dom were given the 8 till 10 p.m. slot after Mitch Churi was let go by Ahern last November. The pair were the product of the network's podcast-to-broadcast strategy. SCA, meanwhile, have bolstered its locally owned digital audio platform LiSTNR with a new leadership structure. Chief Operating Officer Stephen Haddad has been appointed to lead, with promotions for Grant Tothill, Sam Kavanagh and Mike Williams. Grant Tothill now has the newly created role of Executive Head, LiSTNR Operations and Audience. Sam Kavanagh has been promoted to Head of Content, LiSTNR Original Podcasts, and Mike Williams becomes LiSTNR Head of Entertainment and Culture, leading the entertainment vertical. LiSTNR is increasingly the crown jewel of the SCA network, with 2.25 million signed-up users to its app and more than 10 million monthly listeners. I just also want to mention Mike Fitzpatrick, the ABC's Head of Capital City Network and Sport. He told us that he will be leaving the national broadcaster this month to focus on his health, saying, "At the end of last year, I was diagnosed with a health condition that has led to extended hospital stays and significant time away from work. Although I've returned over the past weeks, it's become clear that I'm simply not well enough to work full-time, and I need to focus on managing my condition and my health." Mike had only joined the ABC in early 2024. He had worked as a creative director with Commercial Radio and Audio, a consultant with Nine and Audible, and with SCA/Oz Stereo for 2 decades, where he was part of the network's digital audio transition. We wish him well.
Coming past the 300 metres, Excess Knowledge went to the lead narrowly. Here's Prince of Penzance coming on down the outside. Prince of Penzance for Michelle Payne. Now Max Dynamite starts to charge home. Prince of Penzance from Max Dynamite. Prince of Penzance, it's history at Flemington. Michelle Payne. Prince of Penzance beat Max Dynamite. Michelle Payne has created history at Flemington, the first lady to win the Melbourne Cup.
It is 10 years this November since Michelle Payne became the first and only female jockey to win the Melbourne Cup on 100-to-1 outsider Prince of Penzance. That win and her notable speech immediately afterwards is now eligible for entry into the National Film and Sound Archive's Sounds of Australia, celebrating the audio moments that have defined, disrupted or delighted our nation. Public nominations are now open for the 2025 Sounds of Australia. You can put forward any Australian sound recording, be it music, podcasts, nature sounds, memorable moments in sports, politics or pop culture, just as long as it's over 10 years old. Submissions close June 30. The final selections will be announced in late 2025. And have you entered the Asia Podcast Awards yet? They're open now to podcast publishers across Asia and Pacific countries. If you make podcasts in Asia or the Pacific, there are 25 categories for you to enter. If you make podcasts for Asia, there is a category for you too. Everyone who enters can also opt in to win the Rode Prize, equipment from the legendary Australian microphone and podcast equipment company. I'm using one right now. There is no extra cost to enter the Rode category. All you have to do is tick the nomination box as you complete your main entry. You can find the link to the Asia Podcast Awards in our show notes, or just search for Asia Podcast Awards 2025. Steve Ahern caught up with Clive Dickens about his new AI advisory company, Meliora.
At the moment, we are absolutely in a gold rush. So what about 3 to 5 years? Well, I'm not a futurist and I'm not a crystal ball gazer, but what I would say, having worked for quite a few decades like yourself, Steve, it's like, I think, it's humans who shape the future, right? So we have to decide. As a digital audio industry, we have to decide how much of our content is going to be produced by AI only and how much of our content will be enhanced by AI. So it is very hard to predict what will happen in 3 to 5 years, principally because we have to make the decisions of what we want now. And there's nothing wrong of having AI in our workflows. And I think some radio groups have already tried that, but you've got to be very transparent about it. And also, I don't believe that AI only replaces humans. It should be enhancing the human experience. And of course, in your sector of digital audio and digital radio, these are human connection. These are shared experiences and human connections. And that if we walk away from that USP in digital audio and digital and radio, from that shared experience and human connection, we will regret it for a generation or more. And that's whether you're listening to a podcast or whether you're listening to your favorite radio show, that human connection, shared experience is still very much there as a USP. But how can you use AI to actually further connect?
One of my favourite stories this week. In just over 24 hours, Grant Broadcasters commercial stations Bay 93.9 and K-Rock 95.5 and community stations 94.7 The Pulse and 96.3 FM all got new Nortel NV5 LT transmitters installed and on air at the Murdoch Hill site in Geelong, Victoria. Grant Broadcasters head of technology John Sandals built the facility in 1990 and has managed the site ever since. The 96.3 FM transmitter celebrated its 50th birthday this year, and while it was still chugging along nicely, the valves that were part of its infrastructure are no longer made. However, John may have held on to one or two of them for posterity. The 4 stations banded together for the purchase. The transmitters being able to be freighted and installed together meant significant cost savings as compared to just one install at a time. The only slight hiccup was that the new transmitter shipping crates were 1 centimetre too high for the site door. They were eventually positioned, an electrician connected all at once, and the RF plumbing was installed. From arrival to on air took just over a day, and that included sleep time for John and broadcast engineer Dean Gray. Bay 93.9 and K-Rock also installed Nortel VX2 transmitters as a standby for each service. John loves the radio medium and has witnessed firsthand the role transmitters play in times of emergency, connecting the community with essential information. Through his broadcast engineering business, he recently assisted Territory FM and numerous other commercial and community stations with their upgrades, and is always happy to provide guidance to stations on their individual needs. DJ Cyril is one of the busiest souls in Australian music. I've been waiting to see if a new song that he collaborated on with James Blunt gets some airplay. But ahead of that, another rejig of an old song has had 170 spins this week. The RCS National Radio Airplay Chart Song of the Week is There She Goes, the Lars song originally, although Sixpence None the Richer have also covered it. This is Cyril's version with Moonlight and the Lars. And that's all for today. Thanks for joining me. I'll catch you next time.
Radio Today with Jen Saderhelm. Find more at radiotoday.com.au.